nurse lost her job and visited her late patient's grave. The next morning, she found herself in a mysterious woe. Lily is a 30-something, endlessly optimistic nurse with a dash of quirk and a knack for amusing chaos. Her friends often joke that she could find a way to make any situation both funny and memorable, whether by accident or by choice. Recently, though, her life took an unexpected twist. Due to budget cuts, she lost her jobs at the hospital. This setback didn't erase her light-hearted spirit, but it did add a layer of "what now?" to her daily routines. Living alone in a tiny, charmingly cluttered apartment, Lily's home is a reflection of her personality, full of quirky knickknacks, bright throw pillows that don't match but somehow go together, and plants she diligently waters when she remembers. The apartment's other occupant, Mr. Pickles, her portly tabby cat, is both her biggest fan and occasional nemesis, depending on whether it's feeding time. Mr. Pickles is forever knocking things over, spilling food, and somehow always managing to be underfoot just as she's in a hurry. But he's also her constant companion, and they share a mutual understanding of life's ups and downs. Each morning, Lily starts her day with a ritual that borders on a comedic performance. She wakes up, shuffles to the bathroom, and delivers a pep talk to her own reflection. "All right, Lily," she'll say, brushing her hair with a toothbrush she keeps around, just in case. "Today, you're going to take on the world. You're going to find a job that pays more than pocket lint, and finally figure out if those plants are still alive." She's fully aware that her pep talks are silly, but they make her laugh, and right now, that's something she needs. Breakfast in Lily's apartment is another adventure. She makes a big show of serving Mr. Pickles first, pouring his food into a bowl with exaggerated ceremony. But Mr. Pickles is not one to be easily impressed. With his usual grace, he manages to knock over his dish, spilling food across the kitchen floor before she's even finished pouring her coffee. She sighs, mutters, "Well, that's one way to start the day," and spends the next 10 minutes chasing him around to clean up the mess. After breakfast, she settles on the couch to scroll through job listings. With one hand, she holds her coffee, and with the other, she scrolls through ads with the hopeful determination of someone on the hunt for a dream job. Of course, Lily's dreams tend to involve a little more imagination than most job postings require. As she scrolls, her mind wanders, and soon she's daydreaming about an adventure where she's a secret agent on a mission, narrating her life with a dramatic tone. There she I in the heart of the action. Battling the forces of unemployment, she murmurs to herself, trying not to spill her coffee in the process. Lily has a vivid imagination that keeps her entertained even in the most mundane situations. She's always dreamed of being the hero of her own stories, and these daydreams bring her joy, especially during these challenging times. In one moment, she'll envision herself as a celebrated nurse on an inspirational journey that goes viral on social media. In another, she's saving the world from a catnip-deprived Mr. Pickles, who, in her fantasies, has grown to a giant size and is on a rampage until she can save the day. Her imaginary scenarios make her laugh and add a touch of whimsy to her life, a much-needed escape from her current reality. Lily's closest friend, Maya, is the voice of reason in her life. Maya is the practical, organized one, someone who appreciates Lily's offbeat sense of humor, but often finds herself being the responsible friend in their dynamic. They meet up every Tuesday at a cozy cafe, where they spend an hour or two catching up, laughing over Lily's latest antics, and sharing life's absurdities. On these outings, Lily usually spills something or orders the oddest item on the menu without meaning to. It's become a running joke that she'll somehow manage to make every order sound like a challenge to the chef. Lily loves to tell Maya all about her job hunt, which is often more of a comedy show than a serious endeavor. "So, I applied to be a professional plant sitter," she jokes. "Imagine, they'll pay me to talk to plants and make sure they don't die. It's like they created this job just for me." Maya usually rolls her eyes, but she can't help laughing at her friend's endless enthusiasm. They've been friends since nursing school, and while Maya is firmly rooted in reality, she appreciates Lily's free-spirited approach to life. Despite her quirky outlook and chaotic habits, Lily was an exceptional nurse. Her patients loved her for her humor and kindness, even if she had a habit of misplacing her stethoscope. or accidentally referring to the blood pressure monitor as Mr. Squeezy. She was known for her big heart and her knack for cheering people up, often making silly faces or cracking jokes to lift her patients' spirits. Losing her job was a blow, not just financially, but because she genuinely cared about her patients and found purpose in making a difference in their lives. One patient in particular had a lasting impact on her. Mr. Barnes, an elderly gentleman with a mischievous sense of humor, had become a dear friend during his time in her care. They shared a bond over silly jokes and lighthearted banter, and he often teased her, saying he'd leave her a fortune in his will someday. She always laughed, assuming he was just joking. Now, with him gone, she feels a bit of an empty space in her heart, remembering their shared laughs and his quirky stories. One day, after a disappointing interview, Lily feels an odd pull to visit Mr. Barnes' grave. It's a chilly day, but she bundles up, determined to pay her respects to her late friend. She finds herself at his resting place, talking to him as if he were still there. "Well, Mr. Barnes," she says, "I'm officially unemployed. I know, I know. You'd probably say I should be charging people for my pep talks by now. But hey, it's tough out here." As she leaves, she feels a sense of warmth, as though Mr. Barnes is still with her in spirit, cheering her on. She doesn't know it yet, but her life is about to take an unexpected and hilariously mysterious turn. The day after her visit to Mr. Barnes' grave, Lily's morning starts like any other. She's wearing her fluffiest, mismatched slippers, sipping lukewarm coffee, and scrolling through job postings with minimal enthusiasm. Mr. Pickles has already spilled his food again, and she's only halfway through her pep talk to the mirror when she hears a sharp knock on her door. Curious, she opens the door to find a smartly dressed courier holding an envelope that looks ridiculously formal, with gold trimming and an elegant wax seal. The courier, looking far too serious for someone delivering mail, holds the envelope out with an air of mystery, announcing, "Lily Thompson?" "That's me," she says, taking the envelope while side-eyeing the courier, who doesn't stick around long enough to answer any questions. Instead, he briskly nods and leaves, leaving Lily standing in her slippers, staring at the envelope as if it might explode. Back inside, she plops down on the couch, examining the envelope with a mix of curiosity and bewilderment. Her mind starts racing with wild theories, as it always does. "Maybe I've won some secret lottery," she muses, "or maybe it's a letter from a long-lost royal family member." She finally opens it, carefully peeling back the wax seal like she's unwrapping a treasure. Inside, she finds a letter with even fancier script, announcing that she has been listed in the Asterix last will and testament of one Mr. Theodore Barnes. Asterix, she has to read it twice to believe it, her eyes widening as she realizes that her old friend's joking promises about leaving her a fortune weren't entirely a joke. The letter goes on to say that Mr. Barnes has left her something of tremendous value, but, in classic Mr. Barnes fashion, it doesn't explain what this valuable item is. Instead, it directs her to attend a reading of the will that afternoon at a nearby law office. She's invited to bring one guest of choice for support and guidance in this delicate matter. The absurdly formal language makes her chuckle. It's exactly the kind of thing Mr. Barnes would have orchestrated for a bit of drama. Lily doesn't hesitate to call Maya. "You'll never believe this, but apparently Mr. Barnes left me something in his will." "What? Are you serious?" Maya asks, somewhere between amused and suspicious. "I know, right? The letter is Asterix, so Asterix mysterious. I half expected it to end with good luck." "You'll need it," Lily says, barely containing her excitement. "It says I can bring a guest, so how about we make it a ladies' day at the lawyer's office?" Maya agrees, reluctantly, warning Lily, "If this ends up being a wild goose chase, you owe me dinner." Lily, ever the optimist, responds, "Deal, but if it's treasure, I'll buy you dinner for a year." When the time finally comes, they arrive at the law office, a small, stuffy room filled with what appears to be Mr. Barnes' family members, none of whom look pleased to be there. A prim-looking lawyer clears his throat and begins the reading, each sentence filled with more pomp and circumstance than the last. To Lily's surprise, she's not the only recipient in Mr. Barnes' will, however. she does seem to be the only non-family member listed. The family members give her a few skeptical glances, clearly wondering who this stranger is and what she's doing here. Finally, the lawyer reaches the part of the will that pertains to her. He opens a drawer, pulls out a small, dusty box, and hands it to her with great ceremony. The box itself is plain, unimpressive, and doesn't seem like the tremendous value the letter had implied. Lily feels a mix of confusion and excitement as she accepts it, sensing that something absurdly unexpected is about to happen. Inside this box, the lawyer says dramatically, you will find the key to Theodore's last gift to you, Miss Thompson. The family members lean in, clearly curious about what Mr. Barnes thought was so important to leave to a random nurse. With a flourish, she opens the box and is greeted by a single, old-fashioned brass key, along with a note written in Mr. Barnes's familiar scrawl. It reads, Asterisk to my dear friend Lily, who brought me laughter in my last days. Use this key to unlock my greatest treasure, my beloved cabin in the woods, which holds all the joy and memories of my life. Don't worry, it's all yours now. Just be sure to lock the door before you leave. Love, Theodore. Asterisk. A cabin? A key to a cabin? Lily can't help but burst into laughter, to the visible annoyance of Mr. Barnes' relatives, who clearly expected a more traditional fortune. Maya stifles a giggle, elbowing her to calm down, while Lily whispers, This is asterisk so asterisk Theodore. Only he would think a cabin full of memories is a grand inheritance. But the lawyer isn't done yet. He clears his throat and adds, There is one stipulation, Miss Thompson. The cabin must be visited within 24 hours of today, or ownership will be transferred to Mr. Barnes's nephew. Lily's eyes widen as she looks at Maya, who seems equally stunned. A time limit for a cabin? The other family members, particularly the nephew, look less than thrilled with this arrangement, and Lily feels a flicker of nervousness. She doesn't want to cause any trouble, but the whole thing is so absurd she can't resist. Well, I guess we're going on an adventure, she says with a grin, nudging Maya, who's already contemplating how to explain this crazy scheme to her own family. As they leave the office, Lily is practically bouncing with excitement. I mean, who inherits a cabin in the woods with a 24-hour deadline? Only me, right? She laughs. Maya, trying to keep up, adds, and you thought today would just be a boring job search day. Guess Mr. Barnes had other plans. Now, with a sense of urgency and a deadline hanging over their heads, they begin to plan their spontaneous trip to Mr. Barnes's greatest treasure. Lily insists on bringing a few necessities, like extra snacks, flashlights, and of course, Mr. Pickles, who will not be left behind in case this adventure turns out to be as bizarre as the circumstances leading up to it. The stage is set for what promises to be a ridiculous, unexpected journey that will have Lily and Maya wondering just how far Mr. Barnes went to keep his sense of humor alive, even after he was gone. They may not know what awaits them at the cabin, but one thing is certain, they're in for a memorable adventure, courtesy of their late great friend. The next day, Lily and Maya load up their car, with Mr. Pickles comfortably nestled in a makeshift bed in the back seat. Lily is excited, but also slightly wary, wondering just what kind of treasures could be hiding in a dusty old cabin. Maya, ever the skeptical friend, has come prepared with a first aid kit, a flashlight, and several snacks, bracing herself for the inevitable Lily-style chaos. As they pull up to the small, secluded town near the cabin, they're immediately greeted by their first supporting character, a jovial, somewhat nosy gas station attendant named Hank. Hank seems to know every person, animal, and scandal in town, and doesn't hesitate to share it all with strangers. The moment he spots Lily and Maya, he saunters over with a grin. Well, what brings two fine ladies like y'all out to these asterisk parts? Hank asks, leaning against the car as if they've known each other for years. Lily, who can't resist a good chat, happily tells him about inheriting Mr. Barnes' cabin, and Hank's eyes light up. Oh, so you're the one who got old Theo's place. Legend has it, that cabin's got a lot of history. Some say it's haunted, he says, winking with obvious delight. Strange things happen up there, you know. Maya raises an eyebrow, unimpressed, while Lily's eyes sparkle with excitement. Haunted, huh? Well, I've always wanted to meet a ghost, she says with a grin. Hank, sensing a willing audience, begins to tell a long, winding tale about a spooky incident that supposedly happened decades ago. Lily listens intently, nodding and gasping at all the right moments, while Maya stands by with her arms crossed, rolling her eyes as they try to take their leave. Hank insists on giving them directions, which he insists are better than any old GPS. They thank him, pretending to listen as he peppers his instructions with absurd landmarks like the tree that looks kinda like a bear and the rock that sorta glows if you squint real hard. After several minutes of Hank's rambling, they finally manage to get back on the road, both chuckling as they try to remember his directions. As they approach the cabin, they spot a beat-up truck parked in the driveway, along with a loud, scruffy figure wrestling with a pair of garden shears near the bushes. This is Ronnie, Mr. Barnes' eccentric neighbor, who considers himself the self-appointed guardian of the property. Ronnie is a wiry man in his late 60s, with wild gray hair and a plaid shirt that's seen better days. He's perpetually grumpy, but has a soft spot for Mr. Barnes and isn't thrilled about newcomers. "What are you doing here?" he barks the moment they step out of the car, waving his shears around dramatically. Lily, unfazed, steps forward with her usual cheerful smile. "Hi there. I'm Lily, Mr. Barnes' friend, well, former nurse, actually. And this is my friend Maya," she says, extending her hand as if they're meeting at a garden party. Ronnie squints at her, looking her up and down like she's an alien. "So you're the one who got this place, huh?" he mutters, clearly suspicious. Figured Theo would have left it to someone more serious. "Well, I can be serious sometimes," Lily insists, causing Maya to snort. Ronnie grumbles something about city folk and young people not respecting good old country land, but begrudgingly agrees to let them stay on his watch. Over the next few hours, Ronnie pops up at random intervals to give unsolicited advice about proper cabin care. Much to Maya's amusement, he has a habit of sneaking up on them, causing Lily to jump in surprise every time he suddenly appears behind her with his garden shears or mutters something about the right way to chop wood. It becomes a running gag, with Ronnie showing up at increasingly absurd moments, offering tidbits of wisdom on everything from bear safety to ghost sightings. Once inside the cabin, Lily and Maya realize Mr. Barnes has left behind an assortment of very peculiar treasures, each one more ridiculous than the last. They find an old trunk stuffed with mismatched socks, all labeled for cold feet emergencies, a collection of hats labeled use when feeling dapper, and a stack of ancient board games with hilarious handwritten instructions from Mr. Barnes himself. In true Theodore fashion, he's left playful little notes on nearly everything, with messages like, "This lamp doesn't actually work, but it's a great conversation starter," and "Do asterisks, not asterisks, open the box under the bed unless you want a surprise?" As they explore, the next supporting character makes his entrance. Stan, the cabin caretaker extraordinaire. Stan is a lanky, overly enthusiastic man in his early 40s, dressed head to toe in camouflage for no discernible reason other than his belief that it makes him look more outdoorsy. He bursts through the door without warning, giving an overly dramatic salute. "Stanley Woods, at your service," he declares with a flourish, clearly thrilled to have new visitors. Stan takes his self-appointed role as caretaker very seriously, offering them a full tour of the cabin, which they've mostly already explored, and demonstrating survival skills that are both unnecessary and hilariously exaggerated. "Now, if you encounter a bear, which is extremely unlikely, you just need to make yourself look really big," he says, demonstrating by raising his arms and growling in a way that startles Mr. Pickles into puffing up like a tiny lion. Lily and Maya try to keep straight faces, but every time Stan goes into survival mode, they can barely contain their laughter. They quickly realize that Stan's expert knowledge mostly consists of random trivia and techniques he's learned from reality TV shows. It becomes another running gag, with Stan constantly offering vital survival tips for the most mundane tasks, like properly roasting marshmallows or the correct stance for crossing a creek. As the day goes on, the absurdities pile up. They discover that the cabin has an entire attic filled with garden gnomes, dozens upon dozens of tiny, odd-looking gnomes with exaggerated expressions, each labeled with a tag like Steve the Suspicious, or Molly the Miffed. Mr. Barnes must have had quite the collection, and Lily, always one for a laugh, decides they have to name and categorize each one. This turns into a whole subplot, with Lily and Maya creating backstories for each gnome and rearranging them in scenes around the cabin, much to Ronnie's horror whenever he pops in for an unexpected visit. Ronnie, who is already skeptical of Lily and Maya's city ways, becomes increasingly exasperated with the gnome nonsense. But even he can't completely hide his amusement. Soon enough, he's reluctantly participating, muttering things like, "If we're gonna put old Steve the Suspicious over there, then Molly should probably be on the lookout." They quickly realize that, despite his grumpy facade, Ronnie has a soft spot for the eccentricities of the cabin and a fondness for Mr. Barnes that he's reluctant to show. The final member of this oddball cast arrives just before sunset. Tilly, the town's unofficial psychic and spiritual guide, who appears with an alarming collection of incense, crystals, and strangely a tambourine. She claims to have been called by the spirits to bless the cabin in honor of Mr. Barnes' memory. Tilly is wonderfully eccentric, with a flowing, mismatched outfit and a melodramatic flair that makes every word sound like a prophecy. She dramatically insists that Mr. Barnes has unfinished business in the cabin and that they must contact his spirit. Naturally, Lily is all in, eagerly following Tilly's instructions as they set up a spiritual seance in the living room, lighting candles and sprinkling salt in a haphazard circle. Maya, the only sensible one, sits on the sidelines with Mr. Pickles, whispering sarcastic commentary under her breath. But when Tilly starts chanting, things take an unexpected turn. There's a loud creak from upstairs, and all of them freeze. "Did you hear that?" Lily asks, eyes wide. Tilly nods solemnly, her eyes even wider. "It's him," she says dramatically. "Mr. Barnes' spirit is here." In reality, it's Ronnie, who had snuck in to check on them yet again. But the timing is so perfect that everyone, including Ronnie, nearly jumps out of their skin. Once they realize the ghost was actually Ronnie, laughter erupts, filling the cabin with echoes of joy and silliness, just as Mr. Barnes would have wanted. As the evening winds down, the entire crew gathers around a fire pit outside, roasting marshmallows, while Stan gives marshmallow roasting tutorials that no one asked for. Ronnie grumbles good-naturedly about darn city folks, and Tilly serenades them with an off-key tambourine song in Mr. Barnes' honor. The laughter, camaraderie, and shared absurdity of the day make it clear that, through this quirky cast of characters, Mr. Barnes' legacy of humor and friendship is very much alive. Lily and Maya feel that they've truly honored their friend, not just by taking care of the cabin, but by embracing the bizarre, light-hearted world he left behind. The sun is setting on the day's strange adventures, casting an eerie glow over Mr. Barnes' cabin. Lily and Maya, along with their newfound friends Ronnie, Stan, and Tilly, are gathered around the fireplace inside, swapping funny stories about their late friend. Tilly, who's still convinced that Mr. Barnes' spirit lingers in the cabin, has begun to spin wild tales about ghostly sightings, which everyone listens to with varying degrees of skepticism and amusement. Just as Tilly gets to the part about ghostly footprints appearing in the night, there's a loud crash from the attic. Everyone jumps, and Stan nearly spills his hot cocoa. Ronnie mutters under his breath, clearly unnerved, but trying not to show it. Tilly, of course, is thrilled. "This is it. Mr. Barnes' spirit is trying to contact us," she declares, eyes wide with excitement. Lily, ever the adventurer, decides they should investigate, despite Maya's groans of protest. One by one, they creep up the narrow stairs to the attic, with Stan insisting on taking the lead, flashlight in hand. Mr. Pickles tags along too, looking particularly puffy and alert, like a cat on a mission. The attic is dark and musty, filled with dusty boxes and, of course, more of Mr. Barnes' garden gnomes. This time, however, the gnomes have been arranged in a bizarre scene, a tea party, with mismatched teacups, saucers, and even little hats balanced on their ceramic heads. "Who did this?" Maya whispers, both amused and spooked. "Did you guys set this up as a prank?" But no one takes credit for it, which only fuels Tilly's belief that otherworldly forces are at work. Lily, trying to lighten the mood, quips. Maybe the gnomes just got tired of standing around and decided to have a little party. Can you blame them? Just as they're laughing, Stan's flashlight flickers out. In the darkness, they hear another creak, followed by a muffled thump. Tilly lets out a dramatic gasp, clutching her tambourine for protection, while Ronnie grumbles, "All right, enough of this spooky nonsense. It's probably just a loose beam." To everyone's surprise, however, a dim light suddenly glows from the far corner of the attic. They all freeze, staring in shock as the ghostly light bobs and moves, seeming to flow toward them. Tilly, thrilled beyond belief, begins chanting nonsense phrases like "spirits of yore, make your presence known." Maya, fed up, whispers to Lily, "Please tell me you planned this as a prank." But Lily, just as bewildered, shakes her head. The ghostly light continues to approach, moving in an oddly smooth, floating fashion that has everyone, even Ronnie, looking a little uneasy. As the light nears, however, they realize the truth. It's not a ghost at all, but a drone fitted with a small flashlight, zipping around the attic on autopilot. Stan lets out a loud, relieved laugh. "A drone! Old Barnes must have set this up as one last prank," he exclaims, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. Just as everyone else starts laughing, the drone suddenly veers wildly, zooming toward them at top speed. Panic ensues as everyone ducks and scatters, yelling and tripping over each other in a hilarious frenzy to avoid the rogue drone. Ronnie, trying to swat it down with a broom he grabbed on instinct, accidentally whacks Stan's flashlight instead, sending it tumbling down the stairs. Tilly screams and starts waving her tambourine around like a shield, while Mr. Pickles, sensing chaos, begins darting between legs, adding to the mayhem. The drone, seemingly programmed to follow movement, zeroes in on Tilly, who shrieks and makes a run for it, tambourine clanging all the way down the stairs. Lily and Maya, doubled over with laughter, try to call out instructions to Stan, who has taken it upon himself to take down the drone using increasingly ridiculous tactics, including an attempt to trap it in an old blanket. But the drone is too fast, zipping out of reach every time, sending them all into peals of laughter mixed with screams of mock terror. Finally, the drone's battery starts to die, and it hovers, sputtering and emitting beeps, before coming to a slow, dramatic descent right into a gnome teacup, spilling it onto the floor. Everyone stands there, panting and giggling, as the drone lets out one last pathetic beat before going silent. Just as they start to recover from the chaos, Ronnie, still clutching his broom and looking completely bewildered, mutters, "Only Thea would leave a haunted drone as a farewell gift. He'd be laughing his head off if he saw us now." That thought sets them all off into laughter again, unable to believe how perfectly ridiculous the situation has become. Their laughter is cut short, however, by a loud banging sound coming from the front door. They all freeze, exchanging nervous glances. "What now?" Maya whispers, clutching a gnome for comfort. Stan, ever the protector, grabs his flashlight and motions for everyone to follow him downstairs. When they reach the door, they find Hank, the gas station attendant, standing on the porch, carrying what appears to be a life-sized cardboard cutout of Mr. Barnes. Hank has a wide grin on his face as he shouts, "Surprise!" and thrusts the cutout into their hands. It turns out that Mr. Barnes, in a final stroke of genius, had asked Hank to deliver the cutout, complete with a recorded message. In case anyone ever finds the cabin too boring, Hank hits play on a small recorder taped to the back, and Mr. Barnes' voice comes to life, booming out a cheerful, "Hello there. If you're hearing this, congratulations on surviving my little haunting. I hope you had as much fun as I did planning it." Everyone bursts into laughter again, clutching their sides as the recording continues with Mr. Barnes' instructions for how to properly enjoy the cabin. His list includes things like keep the gnomes company, play a round of who can scare Ronnie the most, and finally, for heaven's sake, make sure to let loose and laugh at yourselves every once in a while. Lily wipes away tears, overwhelmed by the sheer joy of the moment. It's as if Mr. Barnes, even from beyond, has given them the greatest gift of all, a reminder to cherish life's absurdities, to treasure friendships, and to embrace every ridiculous, chaotic moment. In the end, they all gather in front of the fireplace, taking turns posing with the cardboard cutout of Mr. Barnes and making up stories about what he'd think of their misadventures. Tilly, finally relenting, declares the cabin spiritually clear, while Ronnie mutters something about never getting roped into a seance again. Even Stan, who's still clutching his flashlight in case the drone comes back to life, joins in the laughter. As the night winds down, Lily sits back, feeling a deep sense of peace and joy. She may not have inherited a grand fortune, but in Mr. Barnes's cabin, surrounded by the most hilarious group of new friends, she realizes she's gained something far more valuable, a lifetime of memories, laughter, and the best kind of chaos. As dawn breaks over the quiet little cabin, Lily and her friends gather around the last remains of their fire, savoring the final moments of a night that felt almost magical in its absurdity. They're exhausted, still finding bits of glitter in their hair and dust on their clothes, but every face wears a satisfied grin. Mr. Barnes may have left them without a fortune, but he'd managed to give them a night of laughter, friendship, and one of the wildest experiences they'd ever shared. The first rays of sunlight peeked through the trees, casting a warm glow over the cabin and the garden gnomes scattered around the property. Ronnie, still wiping sleep from his eyes, stretches and yawns. So, we just inherited a bunch of garden gnomes, a glitter jar, and an old beetle? Not exactly what I imagined when you said big inheritance, Lily. Lily laughs, the events of the previous night replaying in her mind like a strange dream. She feels lighter, like a weight she didn't realize she'd been carrying has been lifted. Honestly, I don't think I would have wanted it any other way, she replies with a smile. Stan, who's become quite fond of Mr. Barnes' whimsical quirks, nods in agreement. You know, I always thought inheritances were all about cash, property, and fine china. But after last night, I'm starting to think the real treasures are the things that make you laugh till your sides hurt. Tilly, ever the spiritual one, clutches the mystical glitter jar with reverence. This night was meant to be, you know? Mr. Barnes may be gone, but his spirit lives on in every one of those little gnomes, the drone, and even this glitter. She gives the jar a little shake, causing glitter to shimmer in the sunlight. Maya rolls her eyes playfully, but doesn't dispute it. Or maybe Mr. Barnes was just a guy with a lot of humor and too much time on his hands. Either way, he definitely knew how to keep us on our toes. Just then, a rumbling noise comes from behind the cabin, and everyone turns to see an old Volkswagen Beetle that looks straight out of a carnival ride. It's painted in wild, mismatched colors, adorned with various bumper stickers and decorative decals, and even has a gnome figurine as a hood ornament. Lily's jaw drops as she realizes that this must be the generous inheritance mentioned in the email. No way. This is the car? She exclaims, both horrified and delighted. Stan saunters over, inspecting it like a proud new car owner. Oh, it's perfect. It's like Mr. Barnes took a paintbrush and said, let's make this the most noticeable car in town. Ronnie, ever the cynic, shakes his head but grins. You're not seriously thinking about driving this, are you? Lily shrugs with a mischievous glint in her eye. Why not? Mr. Barnes didn't leave me a treasure chest, but this car feels like a symbol of everything he stood for: joy, color, and maybe just a little bit of nonsense. Plus, who wouldn't want a GNOME mobile? They all burst into laughter as Lily pulls out her phone. Okay, let's document this. Group photo with the inheritance, she says, gesturing for everyone to crowd around the beetle. They gather, glittery, dusty, and grinning, striking their best poses. Tilly waves her tambourine with dramatic flair. Stan stands with the GNOME hood ornament like a proud car salesman, and Ronnie and Maya give their best gangster poses, arms crossed and looking tough in front of the rainbow beetle. Lily sets up the self-timer and jumps into the group, throwing her arms around her friends as the camera clicks, capturing a moment of pure, ridiculous joy. After they finish taking photos, they all pile into the beetle for a quick spin around the property. True to Mr. Barnes' style, the car is full of surprises. The interior is decked out with fairy lights strung around the dashboard, and in the glove compartment, they find a stash of cassette tapes ranging from 70s rock to goofy sound effects. Stan pops a tape in, and soon enough, they're cruising down the narrow dirt road with laughter and the wacky sounds of barnyard animals echoing through the car. Tilly, sitting in the passenger seat, claps her hands in delight. It's official. This is the most magical car ever. After a loop around the cabin, they park and sit in the Beetle for a moment, soaking in the morning light. Lily glances around, feeling a sense of gratitude for her friends and the entire night's adventure. You know, she says softly, this might be the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, but I'm really glad I went through it with you all. Ronnie nods, patting her shoulder with an exaggeratedly serious expression. Lily, we may not have found gold, but we did find a deep appreciation for garden gnomes. Maya, trying to keep a straight face, adds, and glitter, and haunted drones, and of course, the ultimate mystery vehicle. Stan, always the sentimental one, gives a small cheer. To Mr. Barnes, may his gnome-filled legacy live on through us. They toast to Mr. Barnes with imaginary glasses, their laughter filling the cabin and spilling out into the woods, where it seems to linger in the morning air, as if Mr. Barnes himself were laughing right along with them. As they head back to their own cars to return to their everyday lives, Lily feels like she's taking a little bit of that cabin magic with her. She's not just a nurse looking for her next job. She's someone who now knows the importance of silliness, friends, and unexpected adventures. She feels braver, lighter, and even a little mischievous. Back home, Lily unpacks her things and finds a small, glittery note tucked into her bag. It reads, "Remember, laughter is the real treasure. Take it with you wherever you go." Mr. Barnes, with a grin, she places the note on her shelf, right next to the leftover jar of mystical glitter. And in a moment of inspiration, she reaches for her phone to send a group message to her friends. Who's up for another ghost hunt next weekend? Bring your gnome costumes. Instantly, replies flood in, each one more excited and ridiculous than the last. It's clear this won't be their last adventure together. As she sets her phone down and looks around her little apartment, it suddenly feels a little more colorful, a little more alive. And Lily realizes that Mr. Barnes, in his own way, did leave her a fortune of memories, friendships, and a sense of joy that she carried with her forever. So, what do you think? Did you enjoy Lily's wild adventure with the haunted drones, gnomes, and glitter? If you've ever had one of those days where everything goes wrong, but you can't help but laugh at the chaos, drop a comment and share your story with us. And hey, if you're a fan of unexpected adventures, quirky drones, or even just glitter-filled mishaps, hit that like button. Or maybe you're more of a let's stay out of the chaos kind of person. That's cool too. Also, don't forget to subscribe. We've got a ton more lighthearted and hilarious stories lined up that are sure to bring a smile to your face and maybe even a little giggle. You definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. Here's a fun little challenge for you. Share this video with a friend who loves a good laugh and would totally join Lily and her crew in their next outrageous adventure. We bet you know at least one person who would love to tag along. Thanks for watching, and remember, life's too short to take seriously. Sometimes, the messiest moments turn out to be the best ones. We'll see you in the next story.